The psalm shifts from protest to petition. The psalmist has laid out his case. Now he calls upon God to act. Verse 23 opens with an urgent cry. Awake, why sleepest thou, O Lord? Arise, cast us not off forever. Psalm 44, verse 23. The psalmist speaks to God, and he uses the language of sleep. God appears to be sleeping while his people suffer. This is bold language. The Bible teaches God does not sleep. Psalm 121 verse 4 declares, Behold, he that keepeth Israel shall neither slumber nor sleep. Yet the psalmist in this verse speaks as if God sleeps because God seems inactive. His call to awake is a call to action. The psalmist wants God to intervene. The second part of the verse pleads for God not to cast them off forever. He asks God to limit his anger, and he requests God to restore his favor. Verse 24 continues the plea. Wherefore hidest thou thy face, and forgettest our affliction and our oppression? Psalm 44 verse 24. The psalmist asks why. He wants to understand God's withdrawal. The hidden face of God is a recurring image in the book of Psalms. God's face represents his favor and presence. When God hides his face, he withdraws his blessing. The psalmist feels abandoned. He feels forgotten. The second part of the verse accuses God of forgetting their affliction and oppression. The psalmist knows God does not forget. Yet God's inaction makes it seem as if he has forgotten. Verse 25 describes their condition. For our soul is bowed down to the dust. Our belly cleaveth to the earth. Psalm 44, verse 25. The soul bowed down to the dust pictures complete humiliation. They are prostrate and cannot rise. Their bellies cleaving to the ground intensifies the image. They are pressed into the earth and crushed. The psalmist uses the language of death to describe their present suffering. Verse 26 issues the last plea. Arise for our help, and redeem us for thy mercy's sake. Psalm 44, verse 26. The psalmist calls on God to arise. This contrasts with the earlier image of God sleeping. The psalmist wants God to stand up and act. He asks God to help them. He asks God to redeem them. The word redeem carries the idea of deliverance through payment. God redeems his people from bondage. The basis of the appeal is God's mercy. The psalmist does not appeal to their own merit. He appeals to God's character. He asks God to act for the sake of his own mercy. This psalm ends without resolution. The psalmist does not receive an answer, nor does he report deliverance. The psalm concludes with a plea. This reflects the reality of faith. Believers cry out to God and wait for his response. This psalm advocates us to bring our complaints to God. It's appropriate to ask the Lord why, and it's proper to plead for help. The psalmist does not turn away from God in his suffering. He turns toward the Lord. The psalm points to the need for a redeemer. This redemption finds its fulfillment in Christ. Jesus is the Redeemer who delivers his people. He pays the price for their sins. Jesus bears their afflictions, and he rises from the dust of death. The psalm's cry for God to awake is answered in the resurrection of Jesus Christ.